Thank you for listening to this week's episode's audio notes on the cognitive load crisis. For more information, please visit our website at focusintegration.com.
Okay, close your eyes for a second. Seriously, just humor me. I want to put you in a very specific headspace.
Uh-oh.
You're standing in the middle of a massive factory floor. It is hot. The air smells like, hydraulic fluid and ozone, and it is loud. Suddenly, an alarm just screams at you, a siren that cuts right through all that noise. Then another one joins in from your left. You look at the control panel, and it's just this sea of gray buttons and flashing red text.
Yep, I'm already stressed.
And a code pops up. Error 404B, cylinder mismatch.
Which means absolutely nothing to me.
It means nothing. And you've got maybe 30 seconds to fix this before the entire line grinds to a halt, costing the company, thousands of dollars a minute.
Yeah.
Your heart is hammering, you're sweating, and you're just frantically scanning these menus.
And the worst part is, that's not a crazy scenario. That's real.
That's the nightmare. But here's the thing. That isn't a disaster movie. That's just a regular Tuesday for thousands of operators in modern manufacturing right now. And that feeling, that panic, that's what we're unpacking today. We're diving deep into a really compelling text called Cognitive Load Crisis and HMI Redesign in Modern Factories.
This is such a fascinating read because it completely flips the script. Usually when we talk about manufacturing, it's all about the hardware.
Right, the robots, the motors.
Exactly. The robotics, the speeds, all of that. But this deep dive is about the software running inside the operator's skull. It's about this invisible crisis happening in the human brain.
And that's our mission today. We're going to uncover why these modern factories are, effectively breaking the human brain, and more importantly, how we can fix it.
Right.
Because the source makes a pretty bold claim right at the start. When a line goes down or scrap piles up, the problem usually isn't the machine, and it's definitely not that the worker is lazy.
No, it's something much more fundamental. It's a mismatch. It is biology versus technology.
So let's just set the stage here. The central idea of this research is that the factory environment has just evolved at warp speed. Automation has skyrocketed.
Oh, completely.
But the human operator, we are running on the same biological hardware we've had for, 10,000 years.
And that is exactly where the friction is.
Yeah.
We've engineered these incredible systems that operate at the speed of light, but we have completely forgotten about the biological bandwidth of the person who has to control them.
Yeah.
And whether you're managing a shop floor or you're just someone who feels overwhelmed by your phone notifications, this concept of cognitive load is going to hit home. It's all about the limits of our performance.
Let's get into the weeds on that biology, because I think most of us, myself included, have a bit of an ego about this. We like to think we're great multitaskers.
We all tell ourselves that lie.
Right. I think I can handle checking email, listening to this, and cooking all at once.
But the source material is, it's just brutal on this point. It highlights a very specific biological constraint, our working memory. The science says the human brain can effectively process only 3 to 5 pieces of new information at one time.
3 to 5. That feels incredibly low.
It feels low, but that is the hard limit. Think about it. If I give you 3 numbers to remember, you're fine. If I give you 5, you're struggling, but you might make it.
Okay.
If I give you 10, you literally cannot hold it all. Your brain just dumps the oldest information to make room for the new stuff.
Okay, so let's take that limit, 3 to 5 items, and transport it back to that factory floor I described. The source lists what a typical operator is expected to juggle.
No, it's an avalanche. It's not 3 things. You're looking at dozens of different screens. You have multiple alarms going off, auditory and visual. You have to understand complex mechanical diagrams.
So it's all the safety protocols.
All the safety rules, the specific steps for the product you're running, and that's not even getting to the tribal knowledge.
Stuff that isn't written down.
Right, the voodoo of the machine. If the motor hums like this, you have to jiggle the handle. That sort of thing takes up huge amounts of mental space.
So you have a brain designed for 5 variables, and the factory is force-feeding it 50.
And that is the cognitive load crisis. The brain gets overwhelmed, it shuts down, and here's where it gets so frustrating for the people on the floor. When things go wrong in this environment, what's the default reaction from management?
I've seen it 100 times. They blame the person. It's always, Steve needs to pay more attention, or we need to retrain Sarah.
Or the classic, nobody wants to work hard anymore. It's the bad apple theory.
Yeah.
But the source argues that's a total misdiagnosis.
Yeah.
These workers aren't unwilling. They aren't even necessarily untrained. They are drowning.
It's a capacity issue, not a character flaw.
Exactly. You can't train someone to overcome a biological limit any more than you can train them to fly by flapping their arms. It's mentally impossible.
So we've established the victim here is the worker, and the constraint is biology. But every story needs a villain, and according to this text, the villain is the HMI.
The human-machine interface.
Which, for anyone not in the industry, that's just the screen, right? The tablet you tap to make the machine go?
Correct. It is the bridge between the person and the robot. And the source paints a pretty grim picture of what it calls the old HMI or legacy design.
I love that description, the engineer's view. It basically means the software was built for engineers by engineers with zero thought for the operator.
If you've ever seen old industrial software, you know exactly what this looks like. It's a gray screen packed with hundreds of tiny data points. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet just exploded.
With buttons the size of a pea that you're supposed to press while wearing thick safety gloves?
Right. And nested menus. That's a huge killer. If you need to check the temperature, you shouldn't have to click menu, then submenu, then diagnostics. By the time you find it, the product is burned.
And then there are the error codes, like our error 404B. That is a classic example. The machine knows what's wrong, but it speaks in code.
It forces the operator to stop, find a manual, or call a supervisor to translate. The source sums this up really well. It says these designs force workers to decode, interpret, remember, and guess.
Decode, interpret, remember, and guess. Every single one of those verbs is just burning up that limited cognitive fuel we talked about.
It is so much unnecessary friction. It's exhausting.
This leads to a concept in the text that I found genuinely terrifying. It talks about the new worker vulnerability.
This is so critical. The workforce is changing. The folks who had all that tribal knowledge are retiring. So you have 22-year-olds coming in. They don't know the machine's quirks. They rely entirely on the screen.
And if that screen is a mess,
they're lost. The source mentions a 1-hour rule that really stuck with me. It says if a new worker feels overloaded in the first hour on the floor, they statistically will not survive the first week.
Wow, 1 hour to decide if you stay or go.
Just think about the psychology. You're new. You want to do a good job. You walk up to this $1 million machine. The screen is flashing codes you don't understand. You feel incompetent. You feel stupid. Why would you stay?
You wouldn't. You'd quit and go drive for a delivery service where the app is intuitive.
Precisely. Bad design isn't just an annoyance. It's an employment barrier.
Okay, so we had the problem. Our brains can't handle the data flood. We have the villain, terrible screens. Let's talk about the hero. Let's talk about the solution. The source calls it visual-first engineering.
This is the pivot. The goal is to stop designing for the machine and start designing for the human. We want to slash that cognitive load.
And the numbers are impressive. The text says a visual-first design cuts cognitive load by over 50%.
It's a massive gain, and it all comes down to a simple mechanism: the difference between recognition and interpretation.
Walk us through that. Why is recognition better?
Well, text requires interpretation. If I write the word red, your brain has to read the letters, process it, map it to the color. That takes effort. Visuals rely on recognition. It's primal.
Like a stop sign.
Exactly. You don't read STOP every time. You see the red octagon and your foot hits the brake before you even consciously think the word stop. It's instant.
So how does this look on a factory screen? The source gives some great examples.
One of the best ones is status indicators. Old systems will have a line of text that says status, system normal.
Which you have to read, and in a panic, you might misread it.
Right. Visual First replaces that with a giant green check mark or a red X. You can see that from 20 feet away. You don't read it, you feel it. Green is good, you move on.
I love the use of photography. Instead of a paragraph saying, ensure lever B is in the upright position, just show a photo of the lever.
It seems so obvious, doesn't it? But legacy systems just don't do it. The source also mentions things like zone maps.
Oh, the diagrams of the machine?
Yes. Instead of saying sensor 4 in zone B is block, the screen shows a 3D map of the machine with a flashing red light exactly where the problem is.
That removes the whole search step.
Completely. You don't have to remember which sensor is which. You just look at the picture and walk to the spot. The memory burden just disappears. The screen is holding that information for you.
And the result isn't just that it looks prettier.
No, looking pretty is irrelevant. The result is that error rates drop, training time collapses, and stress levels plummet. The screen is finally telling you what you need to know right now in a language your brain actually speaks.
But it's not just about static pictures. The source argues you have to change the flow of work itself. This brings us to sequencing.
This is all about complexity. In the old way, a worker might have a changeover that involves, say, 20 steps.
Which breaks our 3 to 5 memory rule by a lot.
By a factor of 4, exactly. The solution is guided workflows. The HMI shouldn't just present a dashboard of buttons, it should lead the dance.
Leading the dance, I like that.
It shows step 1. Open the valve. The worker does it, the system senses it, verifies it, and only then does it show step 2.
It reminds me of a GPS. When I'm driving somewhere new, the GPS doesn't read me all 50 turns before I leave my driveway.
That would be a cognitive disaster.
It would be useless. It just tells me turn right in 500 feet. Then once I turn, it tells me the next thing.
That is a perfect analogy. It completely removes the need to memorize the route. And the source emphasizes that a good system should actually block incorrect actions. It shouldn't let you move to step 2 if step 1 isn't done correctly.
That's huge. It's like bowling with the bumpers up. You literally can't throw a gutter ball.
It creates a safety net. It lets the operator focus on the task, not on managing the process.
Okay, I want to circle back to the start of the deep dive. The noise, the sirens. We have to talk about alarm storms.
This is maybe the biggest source of stress in a factory. In a lot of legacy systems, alarms trigger on absolutely everything.
Right.
A parameter drifts 1%, alarm. A door vibrates, alarm.
So you get hundreds of alarms per shift.
And when everything's an emergency, nothing is an emergency. It's the boy who cried wolf effect. Operators get desensitized. They start ignoring them.
And that's incredibly dangerous. So what's the fix? The source calls it modern alarm intelligence.
It starts with grouping. Instead of showing 20 separate alarms for low pressure, the system should be smart enough to just say, system pressure low.
And prioritize the root cause, right?
Yes, this is crucial. Often, one thing breaking causes 10 other things to complain. A smart system identifies the one thing that actually broke, say the main pump stopped, and it shows that. It hides the symptoms and shows the disease.
Right. Don't tell me the house is hot and the paint is peeling. Just tell me there's a fire.
And tell me how to put it out. That's the third part. Actionability. Don't just show error 404. Show a visual recovery guide. Show a picture of which button to press to reset it.
The source has a great phrase for this. It says, this turns alarm storms into clarity storms.
Love that. Clarity storm. Clarity is exactly what's missing.
So let's zoom out. We've rebuilt the interface. We've made it visual. We've sequenced the work. We've tamed the alarms. What does this actually do for the big picture? Because this is more than just a UX upgrade.
It is. The text calls it a workforce revolution, and the effects just cascade. First off, speed. Operators move faster because they aren't hesitating. They see, they do.
And safety.
Huge. If you reduce cognitive load, you increase situational awareness. If people aren't staring at screens trying to read tiny text, they have more mental bandwidth to notice their surroundings. Accidents just, they disappear.
And we have to mention retention again. This goes back to how the worker feels.
Absolutely. Humans perform at their best when the system supports them instead of overwhelming them. That is the core philosophy. When a worker feels supported, when they feel like they are master of the machine, they stay. You feel competent.
There was one more point in the text that I found really insightful. It calls cognitive load the invisible barrier to automation. What does that mean?
Well, everyone's talking about factories getting more automated. But as you add automation, things get more complex, not less. The machines are smarter, faster.
Very intricate.
Right. If we don't solve the human interface part, if we don't make it easier for people to interact with this super complex tech, we just hit a wall. Reducing cognitive load is how factories survive the next decade.
It's the bridge between the human workforce and the automated future.
It's the only way forward.
So, to wrap this up, we started with a frantic, overwhelming factory floor. We looked at the biology of why our brains crack under that pressure, that 3 to 5 item limit. We saw how old, text-heavy designs are basically kryptonite for the new workforce.
And we saw the solution. Visual-first engineering. Green checks, photos, guided workflows, converting raw data into immediate understanding.
And finally, we realized this isn't just about making screens look nice. It's about saving the workforce. It's about safety, retention, and actually enabling the future of manufacturing.
It's about respecting the human element in a machine world.
And, even though we focused on factories, I can't help but feel this applies to everything.
Oh, absolutely. It's universal.
I mean, how many apps do we use that are just cluttered? How many websites make us decode what to do next? Cognitive load is everywhere. Clarity is king, whether you're building a jet engine or just trying to pay a bill online.
If you are making someone think unnecessarily, you're designing it wrong. That's the universal rule.
I love that. If you're making someone think unnecessarily, you're designing it wrong. That's a mantra for life.
It really is.
Before we go, I want to leave our listener with a final thought, something that popped into my head while reading this. We're talking about making machines that guide us, step by step. Machines that predict what we need and block us from making mistakes.
Right. The machine leads the dance.
So, if the solution to all this chaos is to stop asking humans to think like machines, remembering sequences, decoding data, and instead design machines that present information like humans, visually, as a story, does this mean the future of skill isn't about knowing how to run the machine anymore?
That's a deep question. It changes the definition of expertise.
Is the skill of the future simply knowing how to follow the story the machine tells you? And if so, what happens when the machine tells the story wrong?
That is something to think about. That might be a deep dive for another day.
Something to mull over until next time. Thanks for diving in with us.
Stay curious.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode's audio notes on the cognitive load crisis. For more information, please visit our website at focusintegration.com.